Hello, hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is for you, wherever you're logging in from today. Welcome to our webinar where we are going to be introducing to you the new Knime Business Hub. So before we get started, I want to just kind of walk all of you through a little bit about the platform that you're logging into today. So the platform that we're on today is called Hopin. So just going to walk you through a couple things there before we get started. There is a live chat available. So to test that out, it would be great if everybody could just give it a quick try, post where maybe you're logging in from today, say hello, say good morning, good afternoon to try that out. There is also a Q&A tab. So with the Q&A tab, here is where you can really post your questions that come up throughout the presentation today. And we're going to kind of go through them later during the Q&A session. And we'll also have a couple of Knimers in the background who are going to be helping to answer those questions that you're posting. Now, if for any reason at all you start to drop from today's webinar, maybe it's sticking, maybe you're getting a little bit of buffering, if you could try just refreshing your browser. If you're on Chrome or Firefox, that's typically recommended. And usually refreshing the browser will kind of do the trick to get everything reloaded properly. And if at any point you stray away from the stage for any reason and you can't find your way back, you can just hit that little stage button and that'll bring you back into the presentation. So a quick overview of what we're going to be covering today. So first, I am going to be doing a quick introduction of Knime, our software, and kind of what we're talking about today, the Knime Business Hub, which is going to be our commercial offering. And then I will hand it over to Alexander Filbren. He will be doing a live demonstration of the software to show you how it works in action. And then me, Alexander Filbren, and Jim Falgu are going to be running a Q&A session after that towards the end. So our presenters today include myself. My name is Megan Kadwar. I work as an account manager here at Knime in the US. So if there's any Texas folks out there on the webinar today, I'm located in Austin, Texas. And with me today, I will also have Alex Filbren, who is our head of sales engineering, support and services over in Germany. And then I also will have Jim Falgu joining, who is our co-CTO at Knime in the US. And assisting us in the background today with the questions is going to be Sarah McCullough and Melise Donmez, who work as associate account managers here at Knime. So with that, I would love to welcome both Alex and Jim to the stage. Hello, Alex. Hello, Jim.
Hi, guys, and hello from Germany to everyone. Happy to be here.
Hello, everybody. I am Jim, and I'm from the Austin office here with Knime.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks for joining. So from both of your backgrounds, it'd be great to just hear a quick snippet about what you're most excited to talk about today.
I think from a technology standpoint, I'm most excited about the architecture for Knime Hub. This is very new for us and very a big, kind of a big reach from where we were with Knime Server. And so it's based on a cloud native architecture. And by that, we mean it runs in Kubernetes. And so it can run on any cloud platform, AWS, we've run it on Azure. It could also run on Google Cloud Platform. You can run it in your own data center. It's also based on microservices. And so we've kind of taken the whole Knime Server software, we've converted it into microservices. We've added new services on top of that. And really what's exciting about that is it allows you to scale up the system to meet your needs. It also can scale down. It can run on a single machine. It can run in a cluster. It also provides a lot of reliability, a lot of stability, durability. If something fails, it kind of heals itself. So many things I'm excited about Hub, but I think just thinking about the architecture gets me really excited because it's a platform we can build on for years to come. How about you, Alex? What are you excited about?
Well, I could also geek out like you on that. Yeah, I also really think we have awesome technology in the background, but since I'm more of a customer-facing guy, I think the Teams feature is really important because you can now isolate teams completely from each other with resources, both in computing and workflows themselves. You can have team admins that only are responsible for a part of the hub, basically. And the versioning, I think, is much more elegant than it was in the Knime server before.
Yeah, and just to kind of echo what Alex said a little bit, I work on the customer-facing side as well, and I know that from talking to a few people recently, a lot of customers are very excited about the concept of teams and the ability to work both within your team and across teams, and then also the idea of that decentralized administration so that you don't have all of your teams logging in and fighting for the same resources, so everybody kind of gets their share.
And I think it's really exciting too that with Knime Hub, we're reaching not just the people that are licensed users, but people who may be just getting started with Knime within your company. They can reach out to Hub, they can find resources. So it's really for everybody as they start moving into that data science realm. Don't have to be a data scientist to use it. Scientist to use it though. I'll keep talking all day, but again, you've got a presentation to go through.
We're open source, so I mean that's what it's all about, right? Like getting it into
Exactly.
everybody's hands, letting them all use it. All right, thanks you guys. See you in a bit. All right, so we are going to go ahead and start to give the introduction to the Knime Business Hub, which is going to be our commercial offering. But before we do that, I want to just take a quick step back. Today, what we're assuming is that most people on this webinar are likely already familiar with Knime, but that being said, there is a chance that many of you out there may not be familiar with Knime at all. So to just give a brief summary, Knime offers software that allows individuals and organizations to make sense of their data. So we do that with our open source, low code Knime analytics platform, which enables you to access, prepare, and create analytical workflows. Now, in addition to that, we have our commercial offering, which is basically what we're here to talk about today, which is the Knime Business Hub, which is going to allow you to take what you've built in the Knime analytics platform and really start to deploy it at an enterprise scale by offering new capabilities around collaboration, automation, data governance, sharing insights, and it's all within a cloud native environment. And I could go on and on about the features, but hopefully that gives you a gist of what it really encompasses. So before we dive into the details of this, I'd really like to share with you all how we envision Knime being used in an organization that's really working to become more data-driven. And a recent HBR article really summed this up quite nicely. So it's explaining the idea that data teams are being asked to be very agile to meet the near-term needs of businesses, but at the same time, they're being asked to set up solutions that are going to really deliver long-term value to support the future needs of the organization as well. And it puts them in kind of this impossible position. And we see this scenario time and time again. So most organizations are really struggling with this reality today, and they're kind of taking one of two approaches, or maybe a mixture of both. So on the one hand, you can invest in an analytics center of excellence, right? So on this side of things, you have companies that are investing into hiring teams of data scientists that have a very advanced skill set and advanced background. And then on the other hand, you have organizations that are looking at their existing talent within the business teams, and they're really trying to upskill them by giving them tools like Excel, Tableau, Power BI, you name it, so that they can get insights from their data on their own. And where we see that this really becomes a challenge is that since both of these groups have very different backgrounds, very different tool sets, and at the end of the day, they really have slightly different priorities, they don't end up communicating with one another in the way that we'd really like to see. So what ends up happening is it leaves a lot of lost opportunities and costs for the organization. And what Knime does is Knime provides a platform that addresses both of these groups. So here you can see that low-code interface that you can use for really anything you'd like to do with your data. So data scientists are able to use it for quick prototyping, integrating with their existing favorite libraries or code that they already have built, while also allowing for those business analysts to use that drag and drop interface so that they can really perform their own tasks on the data. And it's all within one environment. And it's going to cover the whole process end to end, right? So everything from taking the data in, transforming the data, and then maybe putting it out into a visualization, a machine learning model, or deploying it as an automated report or a REST API call. So hopefully this can give you an idea of how individuals are able to use Knime within their roles at a company. So the question really starts to become, okay, we have this platform, we're getting these insights. How do we scale the impact of that? That's where the Knime Business Hub is going to come into play. And that's what we're really here to talk about today. So what we're looking at here is an organization, and these three dots are going to be our data experts. So one of these dots, they have a statistics background. They're what you would really think of as a traditional data scientist. So very advanced skill set. They can make analytical models. Another one is a business expert. So they know their data really well. They probably have a background in Excel, and they can write macros that'll probably automate pretty much anything. And then we have another one that maybe comes from more of a software engineering background. And their role here is to really help these other two get data in and out of various systems and start to build out reliable data pipelines. And even though these three, they rely on each other, they're working together to solve business problems, they're actually working in completely separate tool sets, totally different languages, and totally different systems. So getting really any kind of analytical solution out the door to a business user, it ends up taking months. It ends up taking months to get any kind of real solution out the door. So now let's pretend that these three data experts discover Knime workflows. So the intuitive nature of that low-code platform is the only way that these three are going to be able to work together as a team in a single environment. So they start to get to know each other's skill sets better, they start learning from one another, and they really start developing and deploying solutions faster. So now they're really a team working efficiently, and they're getting insights out to those end users in probably days rather than in months. So eventually they start bringing these data solutions out to various teams within the company. So they could interface with marketing. They could create a data app for them that's going to show them their return on their advertising spend. On the other hand, maybe they could interface with sales. They could create an API that enriches their CRM data with firmographic information. Or perhaps they integrate with the finance team, right? And maybe they give them an automated report that's going to aggregate and send their expense reporting. So this team is building solutions quickly because that interface is intuitive, but also because Knime supports easy deployment to any number of end users. So with a single installation, this data team is able to offer solution after solution and is really easily bringing insights to all of these different groups. And what's going to happen is eventually word is going to get out about this. The whole business is going to know that this data team is really strong, and they're going to start to get a flurry of requests of all of the different projects that every business unit is going to want. So the data scientists, they have a light bulb moment. They have an epiphany. They start to realize, okay, these Knime workflows are intuitive. They're self-documenting. So what if, rather than giving the groups just the output of these reports, what if we handed the Knime workflows themselves over to those business units? What we'll start to see is that this organization is now going to have more data science bandwidth. So by reallocating some of the data work that was once siloed within that data expert team, this organization is going to start to become more data-driven. And this is a problem that we read really in every headline, right? So there are not enough data scientists in the world. There simply are not enough data scientists to work on every business problem that we'd like for them to solve. So what we really need to start doing is we need to start upskilling those individuals and giving them the analytical skills they need to self-serve. And Knime is the only product that it's going to both offer really easy use for the beginner, but also a very clear path forward to that advanced analytical upskilling in the future. And this group in the middle, that data team, because they have the time to do so, they really get the opportunity to work on solving the really complex business problems. And let's not forget that the Knime Analytics platform is free, it's open source. So individuals on their own are really, they're able to download it and they're able to upskill themselves. And we see this a lot. So that person can sit anywhere in the business, right? They can have any level of prior experience. Even from my side, I had no technical experience and I've been able to pick up and use Knime on my own. And the free open source nature of the platform really acts as an adoption accelerator. So it really starts to add fuel to the fire here. And this cannot be said of a single other similar tool on the market today. And any one of these individuals, they can really choose to start their own data team. They can start their own data community completely independently. And since the Knime Business Hub, like Jim said earlier, it's cloud native. So with a single installation, the organization is able to run any number of workflows and deploy it to any number of end users in a variety of ways. So finally, what we really start to see is that the organization becomes truly data-driven, which is what we're looking to accomplish at the end of the day. So when we're looking at this concept of scaling citizen data science within an organization, the Knime Business Hub is going to be what allows your organization a platform where all of your data workers can collaborate. So not only does it allow your data scientists to reach out to their existing libraries and share that expertise with others, or letting analysts create their own insights from data independently, what really allows for companies to scale this is that those results, they can be deployed to many more end users in the organization to benefit from. Be it as data apps, APIs running in the background, or automated reports, it really can be scaled out across the whole company. And it's all done within that central and secure environment within the Knime Business Hub. And what I've described to you is a little bit of a perfect scenario. And as we all know, not everything plays out like a storybook, and that's okay. And many of you here today are probably at different points on this path. You probably had different starting points, and we're all kind of coming from a different scope with this. But regardless of where you're starting from, Knime is able to support you in one way or another, whether you're working on increasing collaboration between your skill sets or across the organization. Maybe you're at the point where you're really starting to try to upskill employees themselves or other teams. Or perhaps you're already at the point where you're making these data insights readily available across the organization, and you're looking to provide those insights to people and to systems. Knime is able to support you at any step during that process. And what we're going to do now is really look at how that works. So with that, I would love to invite Alex Filbrin back up onto the stage so that he can really give you guys an opportunity to see what the Knime Business Hub looks like in action. So Alex, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks a lot, Megan. Happy to do so. I have my Knime Hub ready. Here we see my screen. And let me set the scene a little bit, because I prepared a demo that's in the banking sector. A real banker will probably say, that doesn't look right. I made all of this up, how I imagine it being in the bank, but maybe the real bankers, they can get some inspiration from that, and other people can also see how Knime Hub works, how versioning works. I will guide you through the, to me, most important features of Knime Hub. And you just mentioned delivering insights to people. So that's what I want to start with. I want to go into the role of a business user who doesn't build workflows at all and just wants to consume what the workflows output. And for that, I have put a dashboard on Knime Hub and have shared it with myself. So now in my shared with me list, I can just click the play button to execute my credit ML dashboard that shows me for a model that we have deployed that can approve a credit or reject it, how often it was confident, how often it gave good scores, how often bad scores, and so on. So that's the dashboard. It's interactive, so I can change the start date, for example, for the data or for the period I want to analyze. I can click reload, and in the background, the Knime workflow is re-executed, crunching new numbers and giving me this updated dashboard, which tells me we have about 13,000 good scores and about 5,500 bad scores that were given by the model. And since we use that model to ideally automate our decisions, whether someone should get a credit or not, we can see here that about 84% of all fictional credit applications have been automated. And the automation depends on how confident our model is. In this case, it's a random forest model. So what we can also see is the mean confidence of the model over time. It's highly exaggerated here, but in this case, you see that the confidence goes down because maybe the data changes, the behavior of the people changes a little bit. We have to refresh the model once in a while, and this is happening here. So we retrain a model, deploy a new one, and the confidence of the model is high, and then goes down again a little bit. You also see how often the model is called in total. We see a histogram of the classification confidences and just a list of all the decisions that our model has made in the past. So this is an example dashboard that you can build without any code in the Knime Analytics platform and deploy to Knime Hub. But now let me show you how I put this into Hub and how I can work with workflow. So now I switch the role to be a workflow developer, and I want to start my credit scoring project. For that, I have already created a team in Knime Hub, or my admin has created a team for me, and this is called Team Knime, and I can just switch to it. You might notice that the UI looks very similar to the Knime Community Hub. That's because the Knime Business Hub is basically built on top of the Knime Community Hub. We built on years of experience that we already have with Knime Community Hub, running it with millions of requests, hammering it every day. And what we put on top are these teams, which allow us to isolate different groups of people. And we put better versioning than on Knime server on top as well, and execution, of course. So what we see here is our team Knime, and right now I'm the only member, which is a bit boring. So if I want to invite Megan, for example, I can just search for a username and add her to my team. I can decide whether she's only a member or also a team admin if I want her to invite other people or delete things, just do administrative tasks, basically. But you will stay a member for now, Megan, and I save the changes. Now my team has 2 members, nice. But what I need to actually share things with Megan is a space. A space is basically a repository for a project, and I would create one for every set of workflows that do a similar task. And this space can be either private or public. If it's public, I can share it with other people in the company, and that is also read-only users. So people that don't have a license for Knime Hub, they can still access things that are in a public space, drag and drop components or workflow snippets basically into their workflows to reuse things that their colleagues have built, or just download workflows that should be available for the whole company. On the other hand, we can create private spaces, and those are only for the team that this space belongs to. And this is what I'm going to do now for my credit scoring example. So just pressing private space here, and I'm going to call this credit scoring. And that's it. If I wanted to, I could also change the access to this specific credit scoring space a bit more. Right now, every member in my team has edit rights. I could also change this to view rights and then invite certain team members to edit this space. But right now, with only 2 people, we are fine. And as we can see, the space is empty. So now I want to fill it with some content. And for that, I will go and switch back to the Knime Analytics platform where I build workflows. By the way, what we envision for the future is that in Knime Hub, you can directly edit and create workflows and edit them in the browser. And we are working hard on that. But let's go back to the Knime Analytics platform. And here you see the first workflow that I built and that I also showed. That's the credit scoring dashboard. If I execute that in my Knime Analytics platform, we see exactly the same UI that we saw before in the browser. And I've prepared another workflow. A second. And that's the train, model, and deploy workflow. It reads some data from a CSV file and an Excel reader. Then it does some pre-processing, and then it trains a random forest model and deploys this model as a new workflow into this folder called model that you see here on the left side. So if I execute this workflow now, we see that a new workflow is created called credit scorer. And this contains a service input and service output and a random forest predictor together with some pre-processing. So this workflow can now be called from other workflows, for example, to make a prediction using the model that we have trained with our train, model, and deploy workflow. So with these 2 workflows, the dashboard and the train, model, and deploy, we can go onto Hub. And the train, model, and deploy workflow might be scheduled every 7 days, for example. And the dashboard, we just want to deploy as a what we call data app so people can interact with it. That's what I'm going to do now. It's very simple in the Knime Analytics platform. We see now the credit scoring space that I just created, and it's empty. And now I can just select the items that I want to put on the hub and drag and drop it into my space. Now it's uploading and it's there. Now we can switch back to the web UI. And I need to refresh the page once, and here's the data. Now this data is in a state that you could call the working state. And the first thing I want to do now to show off our new versioning is create an initial version of my space. That is, I want to save exactly this state of the space for eternity, basically. So I click on the space history button, and I can see that I have a couple of unversioned changes. So changes I just made that are not in any version yet. They are not frozen in time yet. And that's two folders that I've added and 3 workflows. So I create a new version, and I call this version v1. Click OK. And now a version has been created, and no one can take this away from me unless they delete this version explicitly. Otherwise, if someone makes changes to this space, now I can always go back to this version. To show you that, let me go back to the Knime Analytics platform and go to the dashboard workflow. And we just move a couple of nodes. I save this workflow and upload it again. Now I can safely override the existing item because I know I have created a version. Click OK. And we go back. If I now click on the dashboard workflow, I can see the change that I just made. And if I want to put this change into a new version, I can go to Show Complete Space History. I see the unversioned change, a modification of the dashboard workflow, and I can create a new version for that and call this put some nodes v2. Okay. Now I have 2 versions, and at any point in time, I can switch between the 2 versions by just clicking on them. We see with a nice blue border that this is now not the latest version. And yeah, I can still run this workflow here. Now, how do I deploy a workflow? I talked about scheduling. I will do that first, and then we will do the dashboard. So let me go back to the space. And here we have the train model and deploy. And we open this. Now, if I want to schedule this workflow, it's very easy. I click on the deploy button, and I have 3 options. I can deploy as a data app. That's what I'm going to do with the dashboard. I can deploy as a schedule, and I can deploy as a service. Service is basically for other machines to call my workflow and receive insights. I think that was point 6 in Megan's list of possible use cases for Knime Hub and Knime in general. That's delivering insights for machines. But in our case, we want to create a schedule. So create schedule. I give that a name. And I can choose which version I want to deploy. This schedule being tied to a version is also a new thing in Knime Hub, and I think it's great because now if my colleagues upload something to Knime Hub and overwrite my workflow, they are not messing up the version I want to run in the schedule, but the schedule keeps running by pulling always the version that I selected here. Then we can also select an execution context if my team had multiple, but in this case, there's only one. This is basically a set of virtual machines, or because it's Kubernetes containers, we call it, that the workflow will run in. Those containers, they isolate the workflow from other teams, and they can be configured with different options in terms of memory, CPU power, which Python version is installed, and things like that. Okay, but back to the important things. We want to schedule this workflow. Let's say we start today at 6, and we want to repeat this every 7 days. And the schedule never ends. Now I click Create, and the deployment has been created. I can now switch to deployments of this particular workflow, and we see that the deployment of type schedule has been created, and this deployment will now take care to execute this workflow every 7 days. Okay, now let's go and deploy the data app that we've just seen. So I go back to the credit scoring space and the dashboard. And now I could also just run the workflow here. We call it ad hoc execution sometimes, but I want to deploy it as a data app. So I select Create Data App. I can give it a name again, and we call it ML Dashboard. And we choose the newest version. I click Create again, and we can go to Deployments, and we see that the data app deployment has been created. Now I want to invite Megan and myself to open this data app, or I want to give it to my boss as well. So for that, I can click and select Manage Access, and here add Megan, and I will add myself so we see it turn up under Shared with Me. Click Apply, And if I now go to my profile and share it with me, there's the Created ML dashboard Alex that I've just created. And with a single click of a button, I can access this dashboard and see what my model is doing. Okay, so what we've seen is teams, spaces, versioning, deployments. And if you have any questions about any other features of Knime Hub or the features that I just shown, then I'm happy to answer them in the Q&A. Back to Megan.
Thank you, Alex. That was a great demonstration. Thanks for showing that.
Thanks.
So hopefully after this presentation today, all of us can walk away with a really good idea of how Knime provides software that really covers the whole cycle of your data. So everything from building out those analytical workflows with the Knime Analytics platform, all the way to introducing features for collaboration, deployment, sharing, and scalability with the Knime Business Hub. So if you do have follow-up questions and you would like to get in touch with either Alex or I directly, please feel free to contact us over emails. These are our emails. Please feel free to contact us on LinkedIn. We're both on LinkedIn. Alex, I hope you don't mind me giving everybody on this webinar today your email, but please feel free to reach out with us. And if you do have any interest in getting in touch with our customer care team, or if you'd like to see a demonstration, please feel free to say so in the chat and we'll make sure to make a note of your names and get back to you after this webinar. So please feel free to drop that in the chat. And you can also keep up with us in a variety of other ways indirectly. So please feel free to use that contact us button if you'd like to get in touch with customer care as well. Or you can always interact with us on the hub, the forum, LinkedIn, Twitter, you name it. But we should stay in touch and definitely make sure to keep interacting with Knime. Now with that, I would love for us to transition over into the Q&A. So we do have a good list of questions that we've accumulated from the webinar today. So I'd like to invite Jim back onto the stage so that we can dive into the Q&A.
Hello, great job, everybody. Really enjoyed the content so far.
Thanks.
Good. We have a ton of questions. So, okay, let's get started. First question is about a placement of connectors between components. Can that be controlled by the user? Alex, I think this is more of a analytics platform question. You've built way more workflows than I have, so maybe you can answer that. Part of the comment too is as currently it could be overlapping other things, creating a clutter, and unlikely other teams would not understand the workflow. Any hints there around kind of helping prevent that clutter when you're using components?
I'm not sure I understand the question 100%, but in terms of reducing clutter, I can only recommend using a lot of annotations to tell people what your workflow is actually doing, using the node annotations. And then for components, also making sure that you use the metadata information to describe really well what the components do. Apart from that, I think there will be improvements in our new Knime UI that we internally call Knime Next, because it will be the next cool thing there. And this one is a browser-based UI where we have made a lot of improvements to the user interface. And I think you can try it out right now by just downloading Knime 4.7.0, which has it included by default. You will have a button on the top right side of the Knime Analytics platform, switch to Knime Next, and then the new UI opens, and maybe see if that helps you declutter your workflows a little better, because handling of connections is much smoother now in there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And there was another question, I think that for both of you, can you share with us the resources in this demo? The workflow, data, dashboard, and I'm assuming this is going to be recorded also and will be available later for people to watch.
Yeah, so I'm happy to share my workflows. You might be disappointed because it's very simple in the background, but yeah, happy to do so. I can put it on the Knime Community Hub and everyone can download it from there.
Ah, perfect. Hey, simple is good, right? It's a good way to get started. Thanks. Someone asked also, can we use groups which are already existing in our Active Directory? Okay, I'll jump on that one. So we do use Keycloak, It's embedded within Knime Hub, and Keycloak is a piece of software that helps you integrate with like AD or integrate with maybe like Google as far as logging into the hub. Within AD, of course, you can use groups within Keycloak if you want to say like only this group of people are able to log into Hub. But as far as like being a group within Hub that you can use to give permissions, that is not supported today. Okay, now the question was, is the Business Hub available in the EU? Okay, Alex, you're in the EU. You tell us.
Well, Business Hub is available almost everywhere because you can install it on any cluster you like. We do not provide this Business Hub as software as a service yet. So as of now, you would install this on-premise or in the cloud in your own accounts, basically. And where that is placed, that's up to you.
Exactly. Good. Thanks. Let's see. One more. Is it possible to merge versions? So, Alex, you demoed versions today. Can you kind of talk to that a little bit?
Yes, and especially because I talked to 2 colleagues today about this extensively and how hard it is to get merging workflows right. And so today you will need to merge those versions manually, basically have the workflow side by side and then make the changes. We are looking into this, but so far we haven't figured out how to do this in a user-friendly manner yet.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, and let's see. Oh, this is a question about customizing executor and execution context that runs workflows in the hub. Oh, my lights keep going off. Sorry, I'm in the office by myself today. Let's see. Okay, so we're talking about, how can I set up a Python integration or custom database driver, things like that. And okay, Alex, do you want to answer that one or should I?
Well, I think it's equally good for both of us. I can take it. So yeah, since we have a container-based architecture, every team can have their own base image for the container. So basically a base machine, and they can decide what they want to put on this. This means you can even have many different versions of the Knime executor, that is compatibility with the Knime analytics platform, in one Knime hub. One team might still be on 4.7, while the other one is running 4.9 already. That shouldn't be a problem. And that just depends on the image the team uses for their executors. And you can even have, one team can even have multiple execution contexts with different setups. That works. And within those containers, you can install different Python versions. You can set up database drivers, proxy settings, anything you want, you can control by changing the base images you use for your executors.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, they're just Docker images, right? So we can provide you a base Docker image if you want to install something special on it. And then like Alex said, you just configure that in your execution context and away you go. So, okay, Megan, a question for you. When is the Business Hub available and like who do I talk to get started?
So the Business Hub is available now. So if you would like to test out the Business Hub, try it. It is available today. This is our new product that we're moving forward with. And if you would like to talk to somebody about it, again, feel free to reach out to me directly, or if you'd like to just say you're interested in the chat, we can have a note of your name and we can reach out to you afterwards, or you can always just use that contact us button.
Thank you. Good. And one more for you, Megan. So let's see. Oh, we talked about Community Hub, and it seems like they're familiar with Community Hub, and just asking like, what's the difference between Community Hub and Business Hub?
Oh, great question. So it's a very similar concept. So we saw how powerful the Community Hub was, which is kind of what inspired a lot of what we're doing around Business Hub, around collaboration and everything. So the difference between the Community Hub and the Business Hub, the Community Hub is hosted and maintained by Knime, and it is public to the community. The Knime Business Hub is a software that you will host and maintain yourself, and it is completely internal to your company.
Okay, great, thank you. Oh, Alex, here's one for you. Are execution context licensed? And I think maybe you can give a quick, kind of overview of licensing and how cores can be shared and all that.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I can. Let's not go back into Knime Hub. I'm always tempted to just go and show it because it's really cool. So as the global admin of a Knime Hub, you have a license that you got from us that provides you with a number of users, or developer license basically, and vCores. And these users and cores you can distribute across all your teams. So if you create a new team, you can decide this team should have 10 members that are taken from my license, and they should be able to create executors with the maximum 10 cores. And once the global admin has done that, the team can go ahead and, using the UI, create execution contexts and distribute the different cores they have across the executors that they have. So, for example, if you want to be versatile with different Python versions, you might create an execution context for different Python versions. If you need high availability, you might create one big execution context with 5 executors, for example, that pick up jobs for the same execution context.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And Megan, another one for you. Someone asked about Knime server. So will Knime Hub replace Knime server? And just a question about that.
Yeah. So the Knime Hub is going to be replacing the Knime server. So it's going to give you everything that the Knime server already was giving you, plus a lot of additional functionality. So it is really like a new product that's completely unrelated to the server. But that doesn't mean that we're just taking the server away from existing customers. Existing customers are able to use the server all of this year, all of next year, at which point we would help them with a migration to the Business Hub.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And let's see, another one for you, Alex. Can a workflow be triggered through an API?
Perfect. Good question. Easy. Yes, that's possible. I showed you the deployment button on the workflow page, and there were 3 options there: data app, scheduling, and service. And the service is basically what you use to deploy a workflow as a REST API, and then you can use the API of the server to trigger execution of the workflow.
Great, thank you. And Alex, one more for you about all the actions in the hub that you demonstrated. Can they also be invoked through an API?
Great question. Also, same answer as before. Yes. So we have a fully Swagger documented API for Knime server. Everything you do via the Knime analytics platform and the Knime Hub UI is possible to automate via the REST API. That's because the front end also uses the REST API to talk to the back end. So everything you click, you can do in an automated fashion as well, creating versions, creating spaces, adding users to teams, anything.
And there was a question along the team area they're saying their organization is not really ready for end users to be like in total control of teams and deployment of data products. Can these features be managed by IT department and locked down for end users?
Yeah, so that's also doable. We saw that there's a team admin, and only the team admin has the administration rights on a team. So as a global admin, I could also make me team admin of every team that exists on Knime Hub. Everyone else is just a member, and then they won't be able to invite new people, for example, or change the execution context of that team.
Okay, perfect. And let's see, there's a question about how can components be shared with users that don't have a Knime user license via the Business Hub? Okay. Alex, I think you touched on that in your demonstration. Yeah, maybe you can talk it through a little bit more.
Yeah, so when I create a space inside my team, then I can decide whether this team is a private space, so only visible to my team, or a public space, so visible to anyone with access to my Knime Hub. And if that's the case, I can put my components into such a public space, and people can then just drag and drop this component from the browser into the Knime Analytics platform, just like you do today with the Knime Community Hub, basically. Okay, great, thank you. And there's a question about, let's see, can you also force the initial versioning for production, I think they meant production spaces, where you are sure that every deployment in a production version is versioned and thus requires a snapshot. Maybe you can talk a little bit about CDDS and kind of what we're doing there. Yes, I know one colleague who will just, because we also talked about this in our versioning session today, and he advocated having this auto versioning. So maybe we will add it in the future. Right now, you have to do it manually. One thing we are working on, though, and maybe you can tell a bit more about that, Jim, is triggers. So basically a feature where you can tell Knime Hub to execute a specific workflow if some action occurs. So for example, someone uploads something, the workflow is executed. Someone creates a new space, the workflow is executed. And this workflow can, of course, react to the changes and use the Hub REST API to do anything you like. So for example, someone uploads something into a space that didn't have any content before, then you just create a version automatically using a trigger. At least that's how I imagine it will work. Maybe Jim can say more about that.
No, I think that's exactly right. We have this thing called continuous deployment for data science that we're working on, and it's like I said, a little bit of a manual process today. Like you were trying to move from, let's say, like a development environment into more of a test environment, and then into a production environment. So we have a whole set of workflows using these triggers, as Alex was saying, that would allow you to basically take any action you want to when someone's ready to move something to test or from test to production. And part of that could be just creating a new version. There's an API for that, so you can do that through the Knime Analytics platform that's getting triggered by some action. So definitely it's very flexible, and you can pretty much make it do whatever you want it to do. Okay, so Alex, you edited the data app UI, kind of data app within the desktop app, and someone is asking, is web editing also possible?
Not yet, but we are working on it. So at some point in the future, you will have, additionally to the execute button on the workflow page, an edit button, and then a new browser tab will open with the editor that you can now already try out in the Knime 4.7 release, the HTML and JavaScript based editor, basically. But as of now, you would need the Knime Analytics platform on your desktop to edit.
Yeah, I'm really. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm really excited about this Knime Next, right? Being able to do editing within the browser. I mean, sorry, the UX changes that we're making and getting ready to go to the browser. It's already, like Alex said, it's already available in 4.7.0 Knime Analytics platform. Download it, try it out. Give us some feedback. We're always looking for feedback on that. So we've done a lot of UX work to make this Knime easier to work with. Someone was asking earlier about there's a lot of clutter, kind of there's so many nodes. I don't really need to use all of them. Definitely working towards that to where it's just much easier for you to find what you need and use it. So yeah, lots of work going on to improve the UX. So please, take a look at it, try it out, give us some feedback. Thanks. And let's see, there's a couple of more questions. Oh, okay. So there's one on how can I migrate from Knime Server to Business Hub? Kind of what does that process sort of look like? Alex, since you're in charge of services and support, and that sounds like something your group will probably work on. What are you thinking?
It's actually not my group, but we do have a group working on this. We will provide workflows to make the migration easier. So generally, workflows that you build for Knime Server will just work on Knime Hub. So for example, the data app that I showed today, I built that when we didn't have Knime Hub yet, and it just worked the same way. If you work with a Knime Server API, though, or if you have a Knime Server connector in your workflow, then you will need to use a new Knime Hub connector, obviously, to use the same workflow or in a similar fashion on Knime Hub. But apart from that, I think workflows built for the REST API will also just work. And yeah, schedules will be recreated. Yeah, there will be help coming in the form of workflows, in the form of migration documentation, basically. And of course, we are also always there for any questions you might have about the migration process.
Okay, thank you. So there's a question about let's see. Okay, if I have Knime Server today, can I just upgrade it to Knime Hub, or is that a new installation?
Yeah, that's a completely new installation. Knime Server was based on Tomcat, so it was a kind of a monolithic platform. And we now have Knime Hub, which is based on microservices and inside the Kubernetes cluster. So they basically share no code except for the executors, of course. And you would need to do a completely fresh installation.
Okay, great. And any idea, like, what are the infrastructure requirements for Hub to get started?
You want to answer that, or should I?
Sorry, Alex. I'm looking at you in the picture here and just assuming you can see me looking at you. No, yeah, Alex, if you wouldn't mind, or I can help out.
Yeah, sure. The basic requirements are 16 cores and 32 gigs of main memory to run the cluster with the Knime hub and a couple of executors. But of course, you can scale from there. The more teams you have, the more people want to execute things, the more cores you will need.
Okay, and so let's see. There's a question, Megan.
Mm-hmm.
You might want to ask people in the posts if they want to call, I guess.
Yeah,
okay.
I was gonna say I'm looking at the questions and I'm looking at the time, and I know that there is not going to be a one-to-one there. So what I also want to offer is, if you do have really specific questions and you do want to talk a little bit more about it, about what Business Hub could look like within your organization, pricing, deployment, timeline, anything like that, please post in the chat if you would like to talk to our customer care team directly. We can get you in touch with a solutions engineer. We can get you in touch with our account managers, and we can kind of get that worked out a little bit more specifically, because I know that we are not going to be able to answer every single question today, and I don't want to leave people hanging. So please post that in the chat if you'd like for us to get in touch with you.
Okay, thanks for that. And just one more question here. Is it possible to create a version for specific folders in a workspace, or is it the whole workspace? Alex, can you jump on that one?
Right now, it works a little bit like in Git, if you know that. It's also a versioning system, so the version is always for the whole space.
Okay.
But we have some ideas how to extend that in the future, where you can select, for example, only your changes to be put into a version, or only specific items. But as of now, it's the whole space that is versioned. It is clever, though. It doesn't make a copy of the whole space every time you create a version. There's an incremental versioning where only the changed items are really stored in this extra version that you create. So not too much space consumption there.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I think that's all the questions that we have. Let me see if I missed any. Sorry, I'm looking at like 2 different lists, trying to bring these together. I think there's anything. So Alex, Megan, anything you guys want to wrap up with?
I mean, just like to reiterate that I saw a few questions that came up around pricing and a few other more specific features that we were not able to get to today. So again, if you have a question that maybe we didn't get to, or that you'd like more information about, please just post in the chat, like raise your hand, and we will make sure to get in touch with you guys. But from my side, that's pretty much it.
Okay, Alex, anything?
It was great showing the things I showed today, but I think there's more to show and more to come. And yeah, happy to talk to anyone who wants to about that as well. So reach out if you're interested.
Well, thanks to both of you. You guys did a great job, and thanks to the internet for working.
Yes.
No failures. Yes, that's great.
Yeah, no drop-offs. No, yeah, it was great working with you guys, and looking forward to being in touch with anyone that was on the webinar today. Again, please feel free to reach out to Alex and I directly. We're happy to answer your questions. And thank you for joining. I think that's kind of all we have for today.
And a big thanks to the development team who made all of this possible that we have here.
Hey, thank you.
Yay. Yes.